Welcome to Built for This. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe. My podcast features captivating conversations with intriguing people who have found purpose in their lives through their career, family, or life experiences, and just why they were built for this. Through the stories that you will hear, I trust that you will be inspired and encouraged to find just what you were built for. So let's get started. And welcome to another edition of Built for This. And we're going to have a fascinating conversation on this week's show. I have on a longtime friend and working on a very important work about earth stewardship and a special project or two in that. So I'm going to welcome to the show Randy Kerr being on with us. And Randy, thank you so much for being on the show. And we're going to talk about some exciting stuff.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate you having me on. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, when we were talking, a little while back, you were filling me in on some of the important work that you've been doing and traveling to specific parts of the world, and I'll let you talk about that. But tell a little bit about, I guess, the Sea Turtle Project, the Sea Turtle and Us Project. How did that, before we talk about what that's about, how did that idea first get started with you that there's something there that you want to explore with the sea turtles and earth stewardship?
Okay, well, that takes me back in just a little bit of history. I'll make it as concise as possible. I just finished a Congo project and ended up with an assignment on Dominica down in the West Indies for a eco resort that was going in to protect sea turtles. And to do so on Dominica, one of the things that they have to do is work on economic development for the people of the village. The sea turtle comes in, it nests, it protects and is a guardian of the ocean's water. And it does a lot for us for fisheries, protecting, keeping the jellyfish population down. It's very important to keep this keystone species intact. So this resort was put in to help manifest a sea turtle conservation on an island that didn't have much going on for it in Dominica. That's Rosalie Bay Resort and Spa. So they invited me to come down, and I photographed the cultural heritage of the island and the beauty of the island, and met the sea turtle conservation worker. His name is Simon George, and he's a local elder of the village of that area of Rosalie Bay and River Syric. And he teaches the children of Dominica the value of the sea turtle and that it's up to them to protect them for the entire world. And when I heard that for the very first time, I thought, well, why is it so important to educate a child on a sea turtle for the entire planet? Well, I didn't realize what role the leatherback sea turtle played in the ecosystem, understanding that it's a keystone species. And I found as a storyteller and photographer, filmmaker, that some of the best stories in the world haven't been told. Some of the most incredible conservation work is going on with villagers with very little budget to get to the beach every night and do these long dedications. And so when I met Simon George 16 years ago, I promised I'd come back every year, and I did every year for 16 years. And on the 14th year, after the COVID crisis in America, my industry shifted as a photography instructor, and we were able to make a change in our life and moved to Traverse City, Michigan, where we have Great Lakes all around us. We have water all around us. And I promised I would do my best to become a storyteller for water for the rest of my given time here as a storyteller. And that's it in a nutshell. It's a big picture, but it's been a great couple of years with a project now ahead of us called the Sea Turtle and Us. And our goal there is to show how the us part has got to expand, the us meaning everyone, and how stewardship falls into play with this us part of the title, the Sea Turtle and Us. It can't just be the children of Dominica that learn about to protect it during its nesting season. It has to be about a change in world usage of plastics and how fishery is done. So it becomes a big story to be told, a story of conservation and of water quality.
And I know that obviously that has become such a passion of yours. But Randy, talk a little bit about, you mentioned that you're a storyteller, a photographer, filmmaker, and now this has become, the journey for you to do that. But we go back a long ways. How did that become your journey? This is what I do. I want to be a storyteller, and I want to do it through pictures and sound and film. But how did that grab your heart that that's what you wanted to become eventually?
It really stems back from some of the things my father taught me, Doyle Walling. Some of the things I learned growing up as far as it pertained to the human family and stewardship as a general. And when I looked into stewardship with the other theologies of the world's faiths, I would find stewardship there. From Islam, Christianity, Hindu, Muslim, Sikhs. Here in northern Michigan, in this northern area of Michigan that I live in, Traverse City, the Iroquois. All of these faiths and world cultures see water as a sacred entity, a sacred element of creation. And I found that some of the most important words we're not using in our daily dialogue as Americans. I'll just pick on Americans for a moment. I'm not going to pick on the rest of the world. But if we don't hear the word stewardship on a daily basis, and if we don't hear the word benevolence on a daily basis, we don't realize how those two can come together. It takes an act of benevolence to become the compassionate person to be involved with conservation. It's an act of love for the planet. Benevolence isn't just giving monetary, it's also giving your efforts in stewardship. And I saw those connections, and I thought if I could bring those connections together, show the value of stewardship to faiths around the world. Water is a global issue, and it's going to take global effort. So there's no reason to speak only into one group of people. We have to create a message that is universal and that is unifying. And I couldn't come up with a better title than The Sea Turtle and Us to point to. It will take all of us to help this turtle. And we'll find that when we study the turtle, that the quality of water that they live in is the same quality of water that we as the human family share. And we'll see those parallels between us and the sea turtle. And that part of it is so important to find yourself working for and doing things for the planet, giving back to the planet. So for me, at this stage of my career, I'm 64 years old, and I hope to go another 20 strong years. No retirement anywhere into my desire. I hope to just get better at this as time goes on. So that's been a motivating factor to me, is to lean into a story that I can become better at telling.
Talk a little more about that, Randy, that connectivity that you discovered when you made maybe your first trip or multiple trips to Dominica and saw the sea turtles. Well, what was that connectivity that you immediately caught on to between the turtle and, like you said, and our lives, and how those are interconnected and how we should identify that?
Well, when you experience Simon George's sea turtle excavation moments, you'll see people from around the world. Dominica is a destination for people around the world, and they'll come to Rosalie Bay Resort and Spa to experience this excavation. And you'll see that no one will be on their cell phones. Everyone is eyes forward. People are in a circle. Again, there's a vibration of a unifying message there. That's because they're seeing something so connected to themselves. And I feel I can speak on a little bit of authority of this. I began my journey in becoming a storyteller for conservation with Lady Bird Johnson at the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center in Austin. And they brought me in to start the prairie program there and bring photography conservation there at the Wildflower Center. And you would see where, it was the early 90s, and you would talk about the importance of pollination plants, and you'd see people nod their head, but they just hadn't quite caught on yet. And to be honest, when I watched the culture today, they still haven't quite caught on yet. And we know this by the multiplications of plastics that we see growing in the oceans. It's amazing how much every year more and more plastics are entering into that ocean. And that leatherback sea turtle that's migrating from Canadian waters all the way back down to Dominica to nest on the land, on the beach in which they were hatched from. They follow their migratory route all the way back to that beach. They have to swim through this. And they see a plastic sack, and they believe that it's a jellyfish. That's the role of the leatherback. It it feeds on jellyfish, and that keeps the jellyfish population in check. Well, the number one killer of the leatherback is an ice sac. They believe that
Wow.
sacks, plastic sacks, they see that as a jellyfish, they eat it, they digest it. And it's a story that we have to learn about to ultimately get to a place where we are mindful of what we purchase and how we dispose of it.
We're gonna talk a little bit about your backdrop there. That if people are watching on YouTube, there, Light Austin Live. But one question that prompted me when you were talking right there. You've done a lot of storytelling and a lot of photography and video and everything. But what particularly, I kind of keep going back to your initial trip down there, and when you met him, what was it about this cause and this particular thing that hit you so close to purpose and your heart, that something that you personally needed to do something about it and put this project together?
I'll go deeper into that answer now.
Yeah.
I would say that the first thing that comes to mind is I know that one thing that we all have in common is we're looking for a fulfilling life. We're
Right.
looking for peace in our life. We want to have peace in our life. And if we click on the news and all we see is controversy and divisiveness and on and on and on, but we still have more in common that we are divisive about. And that unifying message, I see that the sea turtle can be that catalyst, that we can see those common factors. And what I found as I've gone through all of my contacts and said, listen, I need people from every group, not just your group, not just this political group or this faith. Everyone needs to hear this story on the sea turtle's need for us to change the way we live. I clearly see as an observer. Now, this is my 47th year to be a professional photographer. And what a photographer does is we walk around and we look for an angle that one click of the shutter can say those 1,000 words that could get a message across. And that first day that I was there, that first day that I saw Simon George, and I didn't know who he was yet. And he was walking, helping these kids cross over this creek, one child at a time, one child at a time. He spent 20 minutes getting the classroom to the beach. And then he told his story, and I look into the masks of the faces that are listening to him. You can see in the mask of the face, that the muscle structure, that tells you what they're feeling, what they're thinking. And when I see that transformation, when someone is speaking about creation and how to connect with creation, they go into a different place. And that element of connecting with creation, and from my faith, that is a great bridge, a great catalyst to think in terms of creator. Dominica's national motto is after God, the earth.
Right.
And they see the universe in that way, a separation between creator and creation itself. And I saw that motto on the building of the Treasury building in downtown Roseau of Dominica. And I asked my friend and brother in this, Simon, what does that say underneath it? He says, after God, the earth. And that's what I see these Dominicans doing. That's why it's so important to tell the story of Dominica. They're after to be one of the first fully sustainable countries in the world by 2030. And they are going to get there. They are going to show, and I hope to be a part of showing the value of benevolence to the earth in form of stewardship. That's what pulls me in.
And you are taking every opportunity, and this is one, but I've seen others that to get an audience for you to tell that story through video and through photography. What are the steps that you're trying to use to get the story of the Sea Turtle and Us, that project, out there?
The Sea Turtle and Us documentary and educational program will be funded by my photo programs. I've been teaching around the nation for over 30 years with 35,000 plus students. And I love to get in front of crowds and share with them what my grandfather did out of a covered wagon in the 1800s. I learned this from my grandmother. And so teaching photography is my way of funding the project. We have a publication that we just put into a beta pilot where we will host 1,000 people to join us in our pilot. And I will learn from those 1,000 people of better ways to get this message across, learning how to interface with light and learning how to discuss this. And those are the steps that we have to take, because the Sea Turtle Nest documentary, it's going to be an expensive project. And so I'm dedicated 5 to 10 years. If it takes me longer, then it takes me longer. But online teaching photography is what we're doing. We've established a YouTube, a free program that is sponsored by Rosalie Bay Resort and Spa and the Nature Enhancement Team of Dominica. And it's called 3 Minutes of Peace, where this free program, people can watch this free program. If they like my teaching style, and if they like the education, they can purchase a publication from our benevolent gallery at lightaustinlive.com. And one sale at a time is how I plan to fund this program.
And the people that are watching this us on YouTube, you see the Light Austin Live behind you. Tell a little bit more about specifically what that means, and
Sure.
or is that the avenue to get this project going?
Well, it was my dream years ago to launch something from Austin, Texas. I lived and worked there for 30 years, and it was prior to the time of COVID. I had built a photo ranch on the outskirts of Austin, Texas, in Bastrop County near Smithville, 11 acres, and we have 11 meadows that are lined up with the earth and the sun, and we developed this place to teach from, and then COVID struck. And I had already started the Light Austin Live program, but COVID really changed things for us. And while we watched the nation kind of go into freeze mode, and no one was doing photo classes, my wife and I looked at each other and thought, well, if there's a time to move, now's the time.
Yeah.
So we sold our farm there in Texas and moved to Traverse City, Michigan. And I promised myself that I would not let go of 30 years of my work in Austin at the Wildflower Center, at the Umlauf Sculpture Garden and Museum, at the Capitol Building with all of the politicians, the Driscoll Hotel, which I worked at for 22 years doing their black tie events. I've been teaching photography there and have an enormous amount of education content from Austin. And when we moved up here, I said, I can produce Light Austin Live right here from the Great Lakes.
Yeah.
And so my partner, Doug Box, and I talked, and I said, why don't we do the slogan from the watersheds of Texas to the Great Lakes of North America, Light Austin Live, and we'll teach stewardship and watershed conservation and do our best to just keep moving forward with it. So I held on to the Austin name and started Light Austin Live, again, with a new website that once we finished this project, I thought, well, what a better project to get started with. And we'll go online and we'll be teaching from the work, from the music venues, great musicians. I've got a program right now, a book cover that I did. The book has been now nominated for a Pulitzer Prize. So I explain how I go through the intricate lighting patterns of these pieces and all the work that I did teaching for the F.J. Westcott Corporation, the nation's largest and oldest lighting company. And so I toured the nation as a top pro for the Westcott Corporation. And so I'll be pulling from all of that data and teaching from Light Austin Live. And it's another reason to help me get back to Texas at least every 90 days.
You've just going through that resume right there. You've done so much, Randy, in the photography world, lighting, and now you have you've worked on so many great projects. But this one, getting back to conservation, and I know that you had a couple of words that I've seen you use before with that conservation starts with compassion and generosity. And those seem to really have grasped, I guess, your work and maybe your focus
Sure.
for the future with this project. Is that right?
It is. And I say this without pointing a finger, but as an observer. If I ask someone, how much does the planet give you and how much do you give back to the planet? I'll say, how much does the planet give you? They'll smile. And then I'll say, what do you do to give back to the planet? That smile will go down and they'll look down because they know we're just not. Mm-hmm. We're not giving back to the planet as much as the planet gives to us. And I know that this is just stepping a little bit out on the limb there, but when we take our energy of benevolence, love, when we act out of love for the planet in form of stewardship, there is an exchange. There is a vibration. There is at the end of the day that you spent your day right.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about other people, but for me, the little older I get, the more I want to know I've lived that day well. And if I do something for the planet or tell a story in a way where people will start to rethink some of those actions, then, I sleep a little better at night. So there's something about that exchange of conservation that is also a spiritual, energetic, uplifting, I would say a true self-esteem builder.
Could you have seen maybe any other opportunity or any other thing that would have sparked you like this or invigorated you like this to do this kind of a project at this point in your career and life with having done everything, but somehow this one has really touched a point in your inside pretty deeply.
Yeah, I've done all forms of photography. I started off with horse photography. I did event photography. I taught people how to do fashion photography. To land into conservation at this stage of my journey, I feel like I'm coming home. I feel that youth, that child within me. I now have the license just to go out with my camera once again and not try to make anyone smile, but capture the essence of creation and show the value in that. And those are the things that lifts me up. I've always tried to build my photo programs based on a simple theory. First, I build the poster. I have to build a poster that I would spend money on. And then I build a seminar around that poster. I have to make sure that that poster looks good. It would make me say, I'd like to see what this is all about. And for this, it's simple. Creation has made the beauty for me. My specialty is explaining how light quality is created and how to plan for light quality. Photography is both science and art. There's the aesthetics, but there's the math part. And so understanding how all of those things come together fascinates me. And what I find is if I can help someone make a really beautiful image that they can remember and cherish, maybe it's a portrait of their mother or their father. Before we left our home on Westway Street, I took my mom down the hallway and had her standing in the hallway right there where the family pictures were for years. But now the pictures are down and her leaning up against that. Well, I can see it in my mind right now, that photograph, that lasting image or that audio recording. One of the pieces of our program that Doug and I are shaping currently is about interviewing your grandparents and interviewing your uncles or interviewing your grandchildren, finding ways to get multiple generations of people to interface back and forth with creation at the center. That brings the focus of that up, and there we become more mindful of the value of creation and hopefully get that word back on our tongues again.
And could that be a stepping stone for, we'll go ahead and pick on the Americans again. Could that be a stepping stone to, like you said, to connect back to creation, but then to really observe and appreciate the project and what's going on back to the sea turtle and earth stewardship and just that imagery of how they migrate and the importance of connecting that to our lives?
I agree with that. And I'll say that there's a fascinating party. The name of our corporation that Lighthouse and Light is built under is called Binding Waters LLC. Binding Waters. Water is a binding element. And what binds the human population is the Earth's water cycle. The Earth's hydrological cycle assures that every human being on the planet is connected through water. It's how we address water. The water on the planet is the same water that's been around since the dawn of it all. It's the same water and it cycles around. And you think, how could the sea turtle have anything to do with, here I am in the Great Lakes? It's all fresh water. Well, it's because how watersheds carry pollutants down the stream and into the tributaries, rivers and creeks and into the oceans. And through evaporation, it cycles around the globe. It's water that connects us. And oddly enough, it's water that's the binding element that brings this story together. And that element of the sea turtle makes that long migration from Canadian waters all the way down to a small island just above Venezuela. That brings water as a global catalyst to see that we're all connected by that. The sea turtle is one of many creatures that need that clean water also. But gosh, there's nothing more adorable than seeing a little baby sea turtle leaving an excavated nest and on its way to this big ocean, just fearless. And it takes 1,000 hatchlings for one to grow to adult life to where it can start producing eggs and coming back for its
Wow.
nesting. 1,000.
Wow.
And you look down and you see this little turtle just just being instinctual and being that little turtle. That has made a lot of impact on me. And watching the faces of other people when they hold this tiny creature just for a moment, and his little flippers are, he's trying to swim already. He's trying to swim out of your hands. He's sitting down the sand and away he goes. Well, isn't that what our life is like? And isn't life can't be it just could be just as scary as it is to a little baby sea turtle to go face the ocean, but the sea turtle faces it, and so must we. And I think that if we join that idea, then we're connecting with that part of creation.
What will it take for us, I guess, in our part of the world to get that same excitement that you told that Simon was teaching these young kids
Mm.
about the importance of the sea turtle and going down on the beach and seeing it all happen? How can we in our own lives have that same kind of passion for Earth stewardship? And maybe you're taking the step towards that in whatever element or level that might be through the project you're doing. But how do we look inside our own selves to have that same kind of young passion that you saw when you visited Dominica?
I feel that we all have a journey we're on, and this is I'm speaking symbolically, metaphorically here, poetically, but we're not far away from the sea turtle. We migrate more than I think we realize in life, and human beings have a journey to go on also.
Mm-hmm.
And that sea turtle has a journey that it's on. It's easy for us to look at a migrating turtle and say, oh, look at the migration pattern. But when we look at our own lives and say, where did we come from? Where are we going? What is today going to be like? We start to see that there are patterns and our free will, our choice. We can go right or we can go left or we can go straight. We can do these things. But one thing that once we click, and I believe that everyone has their own individual timing to this. And for that timing to manifest, it's lots of storytellers and in an individual person. And they'll hear this and they'll hear this. And slowly, as they live their lives in their own timing, I'm not against people's timing because I believe that a creator has a timing for everyone and a purpose for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But in our own timing, we see creation as something that not only can we interface with, but we're a part of. And once that message gets into the mind and realizes, wow, I'm a part of creation. It's not over there and I'm over here. The water in my body is the water that comes with the hydrological cycle. The my bones are made from the mineral of the soil. My blood is made from the water. And once we identify the elements of our body as the same elements of creation, we realize that, we're always looking towards something, but the real journey is to look inward, finding that value. And I think when we go outside, if we'll just close down and try to slow down and get all the echoes of all the other media feeds out of our head and just ask yourself a question, what can I do to help this? There'll be an answer come. It'll be a whisper, but you'll hear something. Even if it's just picking up the tin can that someone else left beside the park bench.
Mm-hmm.
But you did something. And that little start is no different than that little peck that sea turtle has to make on that shell to break through. And one thing we learn in life is that growing pains is part of the birthing process. Can you imagine that little turtle? It's time for him to get out, but he's in that shell. He's got to get through there. My grandmother, Artie Kerr, her father was Cyrus Kerr, the traveling photographer. She would tell me, your life is like, touch this watermelon, Randy. You feel how tight the watermelon rind is? That's your spirit. That's how tight you feel, right? And for that watermelon to grow, that rind gets really, really tight. And when you thump it, it feels like it's hollow on the inside. But sometimes we feel like we're hollow on the inside, but that's not the case. We're in our own timing coming to this. And I'm really not the Pied Piper and I'm not Johnny Appleseed, but I am a guy that will say, think about this for just a moment and give it some consideration on your drive home and call me if you want to. I'll talk about this subject anytime with anybody. This is my first interview to do for this, and I plan to do 1,000 more of them. So that's important to learn how to process what you see in the world and learn how to explain to people why you're taking the actions that you're taking and help motivate people to get out of the house.
Randy, when you've had just initial conversations with people about this, are you seeing any particular demographic of people? I'm talking about age-wise, young people, people our age, older people. Is there anything any certain age that this is resonating more with? People that might be more aware of wanting to be in that give back, conservation mentality of stewarding the earth? Or is it something that we just all need to wrap our arms around and recognize that?
I think there's two schools of thought on that. I'm not sure which one works at which time. Sometimes maybe they're both working at the same time. I believe in fundamental principles. I teach in terms of fundamental principles, and I'll explain this is a fundamental principle, and now I'm speaking poetically. Now I'm speaking symbolically. I'll make sure that people know the difference between what type of information I'm giving them. And if you say it simply, anyone can understand it.
Right.
And I think that shows that the spirit of humanity has an incredible ability of comprehending, but it needs that messenger to come along and say it simply. And I feel that way about grandchildren. You've got to reach down to the grandchildren and say simple things to them, but they're powerful things. Even if it's, how to sharpen a pocket knife or anything. Teach fundamental principles and let people be in their own timing. There's three kinds of timing that I watch as a storyteller. What time is it? Is it 2 o'clock, 12 o'clock? Chronos timing, chronology. This happened, that happened, and then this happened. And then the next is the God timing, the Kairos timing. What is the mystical timing of this? The cosmic timing. Why now? When I think back of Westway Street, my mind can show 1,000 different messages in my mind, just image after another. But now's the moment that we have this chat, and I find that fascinates me. Before I did the project in the Caribbean, I worked with the Presbyterian Church in Congo, and we looked for where we thought the Creator was moving through people, where kindness and if equality is real, then you'll find the realness no matter what. Money is not involved because it's real. And economics have nothing to do with kindness or benevolence or serving others. Bringing those simple fundamentals to the table as a storyteller is a motivating factor.
Have you asked yourself, why me, why now? On this project?
Through the hills and the valleys, through the hills. And I've been self-funding this for 3 years. We sold our property. We came up to northern Michigan and we bought a home here and built me a nice basement studio, self-funded it for 3 years. It's one of those things I thought it'd take 1 year. I came back after the first year, Brian, and it was just a photography program.
Yeah.
And it was a great one. But it looked like something that was built in the year 2000. It didn't have what I realized, that it was information with the digital era coming as it is. And now 99.9% of every photograph taken is taken with a telephone. And they do a great job. And I know the difference in when someone's at their first photography class versus you're their 50th instructor they've heard. And when you can say it a certain way, fundamental principles really, really stick. So, we just live our life this way. And I feel that I'm the student. And I always feel that when I share the story with other people, they'll tell me how to explain it better the next time. So the publication that we've written to help fund this is an actual iteration of several publications that I've done throughout all of my teaching. And so I improve it every time I go to the next step. I was at the Umlauf Gardens and Museum Sculpture Garden Museum there in Austin for 5 years. Every Tuesday I would spend time every Tuesday for 5 years studying light on these statues. And they're from Charles Umlauf, brilliant sculpting artist, bronze from the lost wax style of bronze statues. And the way those were placed on the earth, the relationship of the light and the contrast. I'd already been teaching professionally for 25 years, but that 5 years was different because there I was looking at a portrait installation of maybe a refugee or a hippopotamus or Icarus falling from the sky. But the way that element was placed on the earth and the relationship of the earth and sun relationship, that's how you show and teach people. It's not the light that's falling on the subject. It's, do you identify the type of light that's falling on the subject, and how will that translate to film? So for me, it's just a journey that I take one day at a time, and glad I'm still here taking it.
Well, you've come so far, and I want to ask a question. Did you always think there was something inside of you that you were going to be a storyteller, and maybe not ever imagine something of this magnitude? And you've talked about all the different things you've learned along the way about storytelling. But and how important imagery and the actual photography is going to be in telling that story, maybe even more so, than text, than verbiage. What inside of you did you ever think? Did you think, or did you identify that? You know what? This is going to be my journey. This is what I was built to do.
It takes me back to a dear friend of mine from Denton. Her name was Robin Anderton, and I was 17. And all my friends are going off to college, and Robin saw, Randy, what's going on? You don't seem like yourself. Well, everybody's going to college. I was an undiagnosed dyslexic. So I wasn't diagnosed dyslexic until I was 27. And she said, well, what do you love to do? And I said, I love to take pictures. And she said, you should do that. I said, well, how do I do that? I have to go to photography school. I don't read well, and I'm not a great mathematician. And I had all these excuses.
Right.
And Robin said, you're already as good as anyone in town. Just do it. And that little nudge I got from Robin, I said, really? And just because she saw that in me, that started it.
Yeah.
And I always knew that I was, I probably used my lack of grades to become the class clown of 1979, because when you're not great with reading and all the other studies, you just become funny. And but I knew that I had a way of captivating people. I could be on stage, was comfortable being in front of I'm more comfortable in front of 1,000 people than I am 2 people for some reason. And I was always a natural entertainer. People started seeing my work, and I would be able to verbalize how. And just through time, I don't think it's any different than someone learning the power of benevolence. We get on our journey, and we're sent down these roads, and we learn these lessons, and these characters come along that teach us, and we think that it's this, but we later realize there's more to it. For me, being raised in Walling's barbershop in Denton and watching my dad Doyle, he could relate with anyone. It didn't matter if it was a city council member or a banker or a plumber or a man with no job, or maybe a person comes in with a head full of lice and dad's got to deal with it. He treated everybody the same. Everybody was treated the same. And then my mother, he met my mother. She was a waitress at Tom and Joe's Cafe in Denton. That's how they met.
Yeah.
And she was just the most joyful person. And I just got the storyteller of a barber and the smile of my blue-eyed mom. And that was a nice magic combination, I think. I got to give my credit to my parents on that one.
Well, they did very well. And Randy, you just have such an amazing story to tell, and you are telling it, a story of benevolence, of earth stewardship, of generosity, compassion. And, the project that we're talking about is The Sea Turtle in Us. People can find about that, Binding Waters, the company there. And so you've shared an emotional and I think a very moving story of what you're about and what this project about. And I just want to tell you to keep doing that. I think it's encouraging people with what you're doing. And thank you for being on the show this week and sharing the story.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you for having me. It's a joy to do, and I'll cherish it always. Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. Take care. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Built for This. Be sure to follow Built for This on your favorite listening platform and share it with a friend. Join me on the next episode when I will share entertaining stories of inspiration, encouragement, and purpose-driven experiences. What are you built for? Built for This is produced and recorded by Heart Media DFW.